the government, the DOJ, is requesting a briefing from the head man in charge of the WNBA and the NBA.
The WNBA has been thrust into a full-blown crisis as the U.S. Congress just officially demanded a formal briefing regarding alleged civil rights violations that directly involve Caitlin Clark. What began as a simmering controversy over on-court treatment has now exploded into a federal issue, reaching the highest corridors of American power.
This whole situation with this illegal gambling thing with Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, and many other things has definitely took the sports world by storm. We're talking x-ray tables, see-through glasses, contacts, like it's the whole works, bruh. Players faking injuries. That's just a little bit. Now, this is where I feel like it's going to take place in the W.
This is a political firestorm, with Congress demanding answers and the Department of Justice monitoring closely. A palpable panic is spreading inside league offices. The question is no longer if someone will be held accountable, but rather how deep this investigation will go and who it will ultimately expose.
We know the WNBA is also being pretty much ran, for the most part, by Adam Silver and Kathy. You know, they kind of run this thing together.
When news broke that the U.S. Congress had formally requested a briefing from WNBA leadership, the sports world understood a critical threshold had been crossed. Lawmakers don't typically intervene in league affairs unless something deeply problematic is brewing, but this time, the stakes are stratospheric. The briefing demand centers around Caitlin Clark's alleged civil rights violations, a topic that's been festering for months as fans and analysts question why the league failed to protect its brightest star from repeated on-court targeting and harassment.
We know the Wall Street Journal released an article months ago about Caitlin Clark civil rights being violated, about them kind of targeting her, and people should be held accountable. Me personally, I feel like this is the first domino headed towards that direction.
What was once dismissed as fan outrage has now become an issue of national concern. The request did not arrive quietly. Congressional members from both parties are reportedly demanding full transparency about how the WNBA handled incidents involving Clark, particularly the physical play that many have interpreted as deliberate attempts to injure or humiliate her.
Y'all really think Adam Silver's not finna spill the beans? Y'all really think Adam Silver's finna say, hey, hold up. Y'all coming for, I'm not going down by myself. Hold up. Y'all remember that civil rights violation thing that came out? You know, Kathy over there talking trash about Caitlin Clark. You know, one of the biggest stars in all of sports, somebody we never seen before. One of the biggest backings of Caitlin Clark is the MAGA team.
Beyond the public view, sources allege lawmakers are investigating if executives willfully suppressed complaints or sanitized incidents to protect the league's carefully crafted image. If substantiated, the institutional fallout could be absolutely catastrophic.
Now, I'm not saying Caitlin Clark support MAGA in any way, shape, or form. I'm not saying that. But MAGA supporters support Caitlin. See, that's the big difference. MAGA supporters support Caitlin. And guess what? Who is MAGA? Donald Trump. Same supporters that support Donald Trump support Caitlin.
What elevates this story to an explosive level is its timing. The demand materialized just as the NBA confronts its own gambling scandal, and both leagues operate under the same corporate leadership of Adam Silver and Kathy Engelbert. Congress's request for information isn't just about Clark, it is about institutional accountability. It's about whether the league has fostered a culture of silence to flourish, while one of its most marketable players became a public symbol of professional mistreatment.
This is the beginning of disaster. I mean, this is the beginning of the dominoes falling. Now, I know it's a lot of news that's coming out about the fever with the coaches and on weed and blah, blah. This is bad. Good for Caitlin, though. Damn show good for Caitlin.
The WNBA's response, or lack thereof, has been telling. A calculated, almost fearful silence. No public statement has been issued. No clear defense mounted. Only a strategic void. Insiders report executives are now scrambling, preparing for the damning spectacle of a televised hearing should this crisis escalate further. And with every passing day, that silence becomes an admission. Because if Congress begins subpoenaing files, emails, and footage, the league's leadership may be unable to contain what has been happening behind the curtain. The panic is real, and a countdown to exposure has officially begun.
The NBA and WNBA was probably changed as we know it. Sports betting is going to change as we know it. But my main thing is I'm trying to give y'all a fair warning. I've been on this whole investigation thing for the longest. Fair warning. They're coming for the W. Adam Silver is not going down by himself. I promise you. Caitlin Clark biggest supporters or MAGA supporters? Y'all do know that, right?
As the investigation heats up, all eyes are now turning toward Adam Silver and Kathy Engelbert, the two power figures who oversee the intertwined empires of the NBA and WNBA. Silver, known for his calm public demeanor, and Engelbert, often seen as the face of women's basketball progress, are suddenly being questioned for their leadership and transparency. Lawmakers reportedly want both of them to appear for questioning, not just to discuss the gambling probe shaking the NBA, but also the civil rights violations tied to Caitlin Clark's treatment inside the WNBA. Silver and Engelbert have always presented a united front. When Silver negotiated the NBA's multi-billion-dollar media rights deal, he made sure the WNBA was part of that package, ensuring financial support for the Women's League. But that partnership now looks like a double-edged sword. The same financial and administrative connection that kept the WNBA alive is now binding them together under the same federal spotlight. If Silver faces scrutiny for the NBA's handling of illegal gambling, Engelbert won't be far behind. Behind closed doors, insiders claim that strategic war rooms are already underway. Leaked reports suggest that WNBA executives are preparing legal statements and rehearsing responses in case they're called to testify. The mood in New York, where league headquarters sit, is described as tense and paranoid. No one knows what Congress will uncover. Emails, internal complaints, or evidence of ignored player concerns could all surface. The real danger for the WNBA isn't just the investigation itself, it's the public perception. If fans start believing the league protected its image over its players, years of progress could crumble overnight. Engelbert built her reputation as a trailblazer for women in sports leadership, but now her silence is being read as guilt. And Silver, once celebrated for innovation and fairness, may soon be fighting to save his legacy. The walls are closing in fast, and both leaders know this is no longer just about basketball, it's about survival. The congressional demand for a WNBA briefing didn't appear out of thin air. It was an accelerant poured on an existing fire. It was triggered by a massive illegal gambling scandal that first erupted inside the NBA, when federal prosecutors indicted Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, and Damon Jones in connection with suspicious betting activity. It set off alarms across every corner of professional basketball. The Department of Justice revealed evidence of game manipulation, fake injuries, and even players using coded communication to influence outcomes. For years, whispers about gambling ties had circled the NBA, but few expected the accusations to reach coaches and active players. As shocking as those charges were, the story didn't stop there. What makes this so dangerous for the WNBA is how closely it's tied to the same leadership network. Adam Silver has long been an advocate for legal sports betting, pushing partnerships with major betting companies and integrating wagering into broadcasts. But now, Congress is asking whether that push for profit compromised the integrity of the game itself and whether similar vulnerabilities exist in the WNBA. Insiders say the Justice Department's probe expanded after evidence suggested that injury reports and player performance data were being manipulated. If that's true, it means fans, bettors, and even sponsors were being deceived. And with both leagues sharing executives, policies, and even some ownership groups, the WNBA could easily be pulled into the storm. It's not just about gambling, it's about trust. If the NBA's corruption runs deeper than expected, then every deal, every injury report, and every refereeing controversy in the WNBA suddenly looks suspicious too. Fans are now connecting the dots. If rigging can happen in one league, what's stopping it in another? For Congress, that's enough reason to demand a full review. For the WNBA, it's a nightmare scenario, one that risks turning a thriving league into collateral damage in the biggest sports scandal of the decade. And what happens next could determine whether both leagues survive the fallout or collapse together. As the gambling investigation widens, a new and even more explosive layer has emerged: the civil rights controversy surrounding Caitlin Clark. Months ago, the Wall Street Journal published a report claiming that Clark's rights as an athlete were violated due to repeated unpunished assaults, biased officiating, and lack of league protection. At the time, WNBA officials brushed it off as exaggerated fan outrage. But now, with Congress stepping in, that same report has resurfaced, and it's becoming part of a much larger federal picture. Lawmakers are questioning whether Clark's mistreatment could fall under institutional negligence, the kind that points to systemic bias and failure to protect employees under federal law. Clark isn't just another player, she's the league's biggest draw, the athlete responsible for record-breaking attendance and television ratings. Yet despite her value, she became a target on the court, enduring physical fouls that went beyond the limits of fair play. The league's response? And that silence is now being treated as evidence. What makes this case especially complicated is how closely the WNBA's leadership aligns with the NBA's oversight structure. If the Department of Justice determines that the same executives who ignored illegal gambling allegations also ignored player safety concerns, it could trigger a joint investigation, one that crosses into both men's and women's leagues. Fans have long claimed that Clark's treatment wasn't about basketball at all. It was about control, jealousy, and the league's resistance to her sudden stardom. If that narrative proves true in a federal briefing, the WNBA's credibility could be shattered. Now, what began as a conversation about sports ethics is turning into a national debate about fairness, gender equality, and the power. Every lawmaker demanding this briefing knows that if Clark's case is validated, it could redefine how athletes, especially women, are treated across professional sports. And that's a truth the league may no longer be able to hide. As pressure mounts, Adam Silver finds himself in the most dangerous position of his career. The man once hailed as the NBA's steady hand through crises now stands at the center of two explosive scandals, one involving illegal gambling, the other revolving around Caitlin Clark's alleged rights violations. Sources close to league offices say that Silver has already been briefed by his legal team, preparing for a possible appearance before Congress. What makes this moment critical is that Silver isn't just fighting to save the NBA, he's fighting to save the WNBA too. Insiders say that congressional investigators believe Silver may have known more than he admitted. The concern isn't only about what happened in the NBA, it's about whether the same leadership structure allowed misconduct and negligence to seep into the WNBA. Silver's once impenetrable image of professionalism is now cracking under the weight of speculation that he might have turned a blind eye to certain practices in both leagues to protect corporate partnerships and media deals behind the scenes. Silver's allies are distancing themselves, while WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert remains silent. The two have long been viewed as a united front, but if Congress forces testimony under oath, that alliance could fracture fast. No one in Washington expects either leader to take the fall, quietly, especially if doing so could cost them their careers and reputations. Some reports even suggest that Silver could name names to protect himself, potentially exposing internal corruption, favoritism, or hidden policy violations. If that happens, the ripple effect could devastate both leagues, from ownership circles to player unions. The irony is that Silver once symbolized transparency and progress in professional sports. Now, his silence feels like complicity. Every unanswered question draws him closer to scandal, and every headline deepens public mistrust. The man who once reshaped the NBA's future could now be remembered for overseeing its most dangerous fall, unless he finds a way to stop the bleeding before the truth reaches Congress. What began as a sports controversy has now turned into a political battlefield. Caitlin Clark's rise to fame has created a rare intersection between athletics, culture, and politics, and Washington has noticed. Her massive fan base extends far beyond basketball, capturing the attention of conservative groups, influential commentators, and even MAGA supporters who see her as a symbol of discipline, faith, and American values. That unexpected alliance is now adding political fuel to the congressional investigation, forcing lawmakers to act faster and louder. For many, Clark's treatment inside the WNBA became more than just an issue of player safety. It became a reflection of national division. Fans accused the league of targeting her success, suggesting her race and popularity made her a lightning rod for resentment. Meanwhile, conservative media outlets began framing her story as one of censorship and silencing, claiming the league failed to defend a player who represented the traditional hardworking American athlete. Whether accurate or not, that framing caught fire online, drawing millions of new eyes to a league that once struggled for attention. Now the political stakes are massive. Several members of Congress, particularly those aligned with the MAGA movement, have used Clark's story to criticize the WNBA's leadership and the NBA's influence over women's sports. Behind closed doors, some officials reportedly believe the league's silence could be interpreted as acknowledgement of wrongdoing that has only intensified calls for transparency and reform. Meanwhile, social media has turned into a virtual battleground. Hashtags like Justice for Caitlyn and Protect Clark trend daily while fans demand resignations and public apologies. Every viral clip, every replay of her being shoved or fouled, now feels like political evidence. What makes this moment so explosive is that the WNBA can't simply ignore it anymore. The issue has outgrown the court. It's now part of a national narrative about fairness, gender, and power. And as the political temperature rises, the league finds itself trapped between defending its image and facing the reality that public opinion might already have turned against it. Behind the polished statements and media silence, Congress's letter to the WNBA and NBA tells a story of deep suspicion and frustration. The House Committee on Energy and Commerce, which oversees sports integrity and consumer protection, sent a formal notice demanding a full briefing from both Adam Silver and Cathy Engelbert. Lawmakers want explanations about how the leagues are policing, gambling, protecting player rights, and ensuring fair competition. The letter didn't mince words. It raised direct concerns about corruption, transparency, and player welfare. The committee specifically requested detailed information on the NBA's relationship with sports betting companies and whether those same partnerships extend to the WNBA. Members want to know if internal data, like injury reports or team analytics, was ever shared or manipulated for financial gain. That's a serious allegation, one that could pull both leagues into a federal web of accountability. But the part that sent shockwaves through league offices was Congress's call for clarification on how Caitlin Clark's situation was handled. Sources in Washington claim that lawmakers are considering separate hearings if the answers they receive are incomplete or evasive. The phrase civil rights violation in an official congressional document carries heavy weight. It implies that the government may suspect more than just negligence. It suggests potential misconduct, discrimination, or institutional bias within league operations. Inside the WNBA's New York headquarters, anxiety is said to be sky high. Legal teams are reportedly combing through months of communications, trying to anticipate what questions Congress might ask. Even executives who once dismissed Clark's controversy as media exaggeration are now realizing it could evolve into a public trial on national television. The clock is ticking. The WNBA and NBA have until the end of October to provide their briefing, and as that deadline approaches, the sense of panic is spreading. Because once Congress steps in, there's no hiding behind press releases, only truth, records, and accountability. The storm now building around the WNBA and NBA isn't just another controversy, it's a reckoning. What began as a congressional request for answers could soon spiral into one of the biggest scandals in modern sports history. If Congress uncovers proof of corruption, negligence, or civil rights violations, the ripple effect will hit every level of professional basketball, from league offices to locker rooms, from sponsorship deals to fan trust. Everything could be on the line. Executives are reportedly terrified that one revelation will lead to another. If Adam Silver or Cathy Engelbert are forced to testify publicly, their words could expose a chain of cover-ups, hidden communications, and failed oversight stretching back years. In that case, the WNBA wouldn't just face criticism. It could face lawsuits, sanctions, and loss of public funding. Sponsors could withdraw, media networks could demand contract renewals, and most damaging of all, fans could walk away from a league they once believed in. For the players, especially those like Caitlin Clark, this moment feels bittersweet. On one hand, the truth may finally bring accountability and reform. On the other, the chaos threatens to overshadow the sport itself. Clark's name is now at the center of a political and legal battle that's much bigger than basketball. What was once a story about rough fouls and poor officiating has transformed into a question of integrity, equality, and justice. Some insiders predict the leagues will attempt a quiet settlement, offering transparency reforms before any hearing takes place. But others believe it's too late, that the damage is already public, and Congress won't back off. Whatever happens next, the countdown to October's briefing has already changed the tone of professional basketball. The WNBA, once fighting for visibility, is now fighting for credibility. And as one source put it bluntly, when the first domino falls, it won't stop with Adam Silver. It'll take the entire system down with it. The WNBA's moment of truth has arrived. What started as quiet tension has now become a full-blown federal storm that could expose everything hidden beneath the surface of professional basketball. With Congress demanding answers and fans demanding justice for Caitlin Clark, the league stands on the edge of transformation or collapse. Adam Silver and Cathy Engelbert can no longer rely on silence. The nation is watching, and every move they make will define the future of both leagues. The countdown to accountability has begun, and this time, there's no escaping the truth.